quick power through in terms of her role. She is passionate about helping women transforming their pain into purpose. And she has spoken, she's done TEDx talks. Her own experience is so intense and so deep. So I'm just going to bring her straight on to talk to us and introduce herself. Miss Deliqua, welcome. Are you ready to come on stage for us?
Hi.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'm not going to keep you. The floor is yours.
All right. So my name is Deliqua Isom. I am a mental wellness coach that help women transform their life from pain to purpose to power. I am also a self-published author of 2 books, Through the Pain, I Rise, Let's Talk, and Behind the Scenes of Purpose, How to Align Yourself to Purpose. I am also the founder of the Flawless Foundation, helping single moms reposition their lives, and the owner of Flawless Fitness Spa and Flawless Fitness Apparel. So, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. As she said, that my story is very, very intense. Yes, it is, but it's not a different story. You know, it is just a story that we sweep up under the rug, that we've been told, okay, what happens in the house stays in the house, so keep it in the house. And so with that mindset, I lost my voice. So I was molested from age 5 to 12. I was raped in my early 20s. I had my first child at 15, my second one at 18. I went through a lot of physical and verbal abuse. So you can imagine how that numbed me, how that quiets me, how I was not able to understand the greatness that I carried on the inside of me because of my situations, because of my circumstances. So if you've never been molested or never been raped, you can't fathom what I'm speaking about. But maybe you haven't experienced that trauma directly. Maybe you have experienced adverse trauma. Maybe you watch your mom get beat. Maybe your father was incarcerated. Maybe you were neglected. All of it is trauma. And all of it has or plays a role in how we develop ourselves, how we see ourselves, how we find our identity or not find our identity. It also dictates to us how we value ourselves as women. And so if you've been molested, if you've been raped, you can understand that came with a lot of insecurities, how I viewed my body, how I viewed myself, how I would not allow myself to make eye contact with men because I did not want them to look or think that I'm calling their attention a certain way. So you have to understand the mindset that I walked in and what I carried on me from age 5 till my early 20s, because I did not break free until my early 20s. I went through a spiritual transformation of healing, and not only healing, but forgiveness. And so when we're talking about owning our greatness and walking in our greatness, the first thing that you must do for yourself and no one else, baby, is to heal yourself and to forgive yourself. Because when you begin to forgive yourself, you unlock the greatness and the power that you carry on the inside of you. It is not about them, it is about you. So how did I begin to heal? How did I begin to forgive those? It was simple. It wasn't spooky. It was not anything other than me making a decision after I heard my daughter, who was in elementary at that time, say she want to be like her mama. So what am I teaching her? Because if we know anything about behaviors, if we don't get rid of them, we pass them down to the next generation. Okay. And so I know I was hurting. I was broken. I was confused. I was angry at the world. I did not like people. So if my daughter is saying that she wants to be like me, what am I showing her? What generational curse mentally and emotionally am I passing down to her? So that was my determining factor in making the decision that I needed to heal and I needed to forgive, not only for myself, but for the generation of children, my son and my daughter, that I was raising. Because guess what? These children grow up to be adults. And if we are raising them from the point of attraction of pain and hurt, guess what? We're raising wounded children to become adults in this world. And that was not going to be my story. It was not going to be their story. So I began to sit and ask God, who am I? Because I saw myself as being molested. I saw myself as being raped. I saw myself with self-doubt and hatred on the inside of me. So the first thing that I did in discovering and walking in my healing and walking through that whole phase, asking the question, God, who am I? First and foremost, I had to identify myself through my pain and understand that my pain had nothing to do with my identity, but had everything to do with the purpose and the call that was on or is on my life, to walk out and to be able to carry this, to reach back and help other young men and women walk in their purpose and walk in their power. So understanding your trauma, it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with the person that you're going to meet in the grocery store or at the gym or at a conference. It has everything to do with that. And how you respond to your trauma will dictate a lot about your life. It will either open up some doors or shut down some doors, but it all depends on how you respond to your trauma. So we must understand how important it is for us to heal and forgive everyone involved. I was molested by family members, okay? Family members that never came to apologize to me. And I did not need an apology because I understood my power was not in their apology. My power was in me setting myself free. So when you set yourself free, you take back the power that no longer says you have control over my destiny. You have no control over my purpose. So again, healing and forgiving is the first thing that we must do in understanding and walking and owning our greatness. The second thing we must do is find out, who are you? Not according to social media, not according to your friends and your family, not according to the job and the hat that you wear. Who are you? I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And while I am having this human experience, I am going to co-create the best possible human experience that I can possibly have here on earth. And that is because I come into vibrational alignment and internal fulfillment. I don't look for the world to validate me. I don't look for things to validate me. So the second thing, ladies, find out who you are and become a vibrational alignment to that thing, and understand that your fulfillment comes from within. It does not come from outside. It does not come from social media. It does not come from the hand claps and the congratulations and the applause and our achievements. That has nothing to do with who you are, to the root, to the soul being of you. So you must discover who you are. The third thing we must do is identify our limiting beliefs. But if you don't know who you are, you're going to have a hard time finding out your hindering or limitations, your limiting beliefs. So what is causing you to stand still and not move? Whatever is causing you to stand still and not move, it is tied to who you think you are currently in this moment. And I can guarantee you that who you think you are currently in this moment that is causing you to be stagnant is not who you truly are, because you are fearfully and wonderfully made. So if you are fearfully and wonderfully made, then that means that we don't walk in fear. We walk in the power of I am, but we cannot discover who we are until we truly pull back the layers to understand the root cause of those things that causes us to be the opposite of what we think we are, which lets us walk into the misguided version of our ams. And I used to walk into that misguided version. And I made a decision to no longer walk into that misguided version of that I am. So when we are finding our identity and we are looking at the things that are hindering us, our limiting beliefs, not only do we need to look at these things, we need to dig a little deeper and find out what caused these things. I believe that since we came out of the womb, we've been programmed. And there's a lot of unprogramming that we need to do. Most of that programming came from trauma from those that raised us, from them not healing. And if you heard me say before in the very beginning that I did not want to continue to pass on that generational cycle, because guess what? My experience was also my mother experiences. And see how that behavior, that change, that line, that curse was passed to me. And so I made a decision to say, no, it starts with me. It is not going to go to my children. So in identifying those limiting beliefs, we have to understand, how were we programmed? What was the programming? Did that programming come from things that you were taught? Were you taught fear? Were you taught self-doubt? Did people speak down to you? And if so, when did it first happen? Be able to dig deep below the surface. It's time for us to come below the surface and not be so shallow with who we are and get to the deep being of us. Is there a question?
No, you're still good. You're still good. But we're coming up with the question soon.
Okay. Okay. All right. So identify those limiting beliefs that you have on the inside of you. Because once you begin to identify those limiting beliefs, you can identify your behaviors and you can identify your triggers. And therefore, you no longer have to cope with the behaviors of those things that trigger you. I believe in the complete power of healing. I don't have any triggers. Guess why? Because I've been set free. I understood where those triggers came from and understood what I needed to do for me to stop those triggers from reproducing in my life. So, okay. I'm sorry. I'm trying to look down at the screen and talk at the same time. I'm not used to being on a virtual conference. I'm used to being in front of a live audience. So it's a kind of a lot for me at this moment. But anyway, so when we're identifying our triggers and we're identifying the behaviors, where was the point of entry? If we look at the Bible says, fear not. I don't know how many times, like 300 and something times. But where did fear first enter into the Bible? It entered with Adam and Eve. And so when we were able to identify where that fear came from, we have to also be able to identify within ourselves where these limiting beliefs came from that has hindered us from moving and walking in our purpose and owning our greatness. We cannot walk in the fullness of our greatness until we get these things off of us, out of our vibration, and clear our energy from these things. The other thing that you want to do is you want to be accountable. Be accountable to who you are, not to who you think people think you are, not accountable to someone else's standards, but hold yourself accountable every single day and show up as your true, authentic self every single day, even if it offends someone else. Because again, when you start walking in your power, when you start walking in your greatness, when you start really becoming your true, authentic self, you are going to raise your vibration. And those people that do not identify with you, they will fall off you. And it is completely okay. It is completely okay to allow those people to fall off. Because if you keep those people hanging on to you, they are going to cause a vibrational interference with your path, because you're not only dealing with you now, you're stumbling because you are trying to pull them up and they're wearing you down because they have not tapped into the healed versions of themselves. So in owning your power, understand that it is completely okay to not yield your personal power to people pleasing those that do not serve your path and where you are going.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. You paused. I wasn't sure if you had finished, but
Yes.
no, but that's fantastic. Thank you so much. That's so very deep and intense. And I do have a question. The first point that you made was about heal yourself and forgive yourself. And absolutely that is key. But a lot of the times people ask the question, is there a time frame for that? Because people go through years trying to heal, trying to forgive the person that has hurt them, or trying to forgive themselves. And there's an argument that it shouldn't take time. It just, if you just go through the process. So does it take time, or is it a process?
I feel like it is a process. It does take time. But for me, it was a quick decision because I was ready. And so I personally feel that when you are really, really ready to let go and forgive people, it happens instantly for you. It is not something that you continue to carry around with you. My cousins that molested me, one of them is dead, one of them is alive, and I can go around him. I can hug him. I can talk to him. Now, I do use wisdom. I ain't going around the corner with you by myself because I understand that that spirit is still on you. But it can be a very quick decision when you have made up inside of you that you are ready. And I was completely ready because
Right.
I understood that there was so much more in the midst of everything that I went through. I understood that there was so much more in me than what I was seeing manifest in my life. And it was
Okay.
time for me to release and let go so that I can move forward, not just for me, but for my children as well.
That was powerful. I thought that was absolutely powerful, that for the next generation as well. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for giving us the insight. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank
And sorry,
you.
where did you say you were based?
I'm in
Because we know this
Atlanta.
is
I'm
global.
in
So you're
Georgia.
in
Yes,
Atlanta. Yeah,
I'm in
brilliant.
Georgia.
I
You
did
can
say,
connect with
I did
me.
say so.
Okay, so you guys can
Great.
connect with me on Instagram. I do a lot of little coaching points on my page, just freely throughout the day as I feel led to drop something. I do, and I have a lot of women empowerment events and men events coming up as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And as she said, everyone do connect. Thank you. Take care. And I'm going to bring on our next speaker soon. Right, a quick introduction because I am mindful of our time. So we are going from that mental wellness in terms of forgiving ourselves to back to leadership because it starts with self. To lead, you have to definitely be able to have healed and forgiving yourself for various things. But also when you're in a position of leadership and executive position, there's a lot more that you really have to work on in terms of your beliefs. So I want to introduce Miss Constance Howard,